Let me tell you a story whispered through generations, told by grandmothers around the fire, and carried by the wind through the valleys of the old land. A long time ago, in a village cradled between two mountains, there lived a young woman named Amara. She was curious, bold, and loved wandering alone in the hills. The elders warned her, "Do not wander past the waterfall at the edge of the world. It is a gate, and once crossed, it does not always open again." But Amara had always felt drawn to that waterfall. One day, just before sunset, Amara climbed the hill, her heart beating like a drum. The air shimmered strangely that evening, and the sound of rushing water seemed to whisper her name. As she approached the falls, a soft mist kissed her face. Without thinking, without fear, she stepped through the curtain of water. And the world changed. She blinked and found herself in a place like no other. The sky above was the bluest she had ever seen. Not a single cloud, not a single bird. She stood in shimmering water that reached only to her thighs, warm and soft like silk. Yet there was no land, no grass, no trees, just endless water and people. But these were not villagers. These were beings of the water with glowing eyes and gentle laughter. They swam and played, dancing in waves that shimmered like sunlight in a dream. They welcomed Amara as if she had always belonged there, and she felt it too, as if she had returned to a home she never knew she had. Time passed strangely in that place. Days felt like minutes, and minutes like forever. Amara swam with children made of mist and light, shared food that tasted like memory and wind, and laughed more freely than she ever had before. Amara's first days in the water realm passed like a dream, slow and glowing. But as time moved forward, she began to notice things. The beings who lived there, they were not just people, they were keepers. One morning, she followed a girl made of mist into a deep part of the water. The girl dove under, and Amara followed, not needing to hold her breath. Beneath the surface was a forest, but not of trees. It was a forest of memories. Long strands of light floated like seaweed, and when Amara brushed against one, she saw a vision. A child on her mother's back, laughing in a rainstorm. A fisherman who wept as he released his last catch back into the river. A woman standing at a riverbank, whispering secrets to the water before disappearing into it. Every glowing thread was a moment from someone's life, stored in the water like a living library. The girl of mist whispered, "Water remembers. We keep what humans forget." Amara learned that the beings here were called the Remembers. They guided souls, healed broken spirits, and guarded the doorways between worlds. They told her that Amara had been born under a water moon, chosen long ago to become a messenger between realms. But before she could earn that role, she had to be tested. The first test was silence. She was placed in a floating hut, far from anyone. There was no sound, no echo. She stayed there for 7 days and 7 nights, with only her heartbeat and thoughts. In the silence, she heard the truth of her soul. She learned how much of her pain she had been carrying, the fear of never belonging, the longing for something more, the loneliness that had no name. When she emerged, she didn't cry. She only bowed her head, lighter. The second test was compassion. She was brought to a water being who had forgotten who they were. They had drifted too far from the center and lost their form, a spirit floating in fragments. Amara had to sit with it, day after day, listening, humming songs from her village, telling stories of home. Slowly, the spirit began to shape itself again. Its eyes found light. Its voice returned. From that day on, Amara became known among the Remembers as the one who remembers with her heart. She swam with whales who could sing the names of the stars. She walked upon rivers of glass that showed her reflections of who she could become. A healer, a queen, a wanderer. She learned that water could take form, not just as oceans and tears, but as mirrors, as memory, even as time. But one day, a woman, older than time, with silver braids and eyes like deep rivers, placed her hand on Amara's shoulder and said, "It is time. You must return. Not all who come here may stay." Amara wanted to protest. Her heart felt heavy, but something in the woman's gaze stilled her soul. One night, beneath a moon that looked like it was breathing, Amara sat beside the silver-skinned woman again. "Why was I brought here?" Amara asked. To awaken, the woman said, and to return, carrying the wisdom of the water to those who thirst for truth. Amara frowned. But I feel like I belong here. You do. But your work begins out there. The woman touched Amara's chest, and Amara felt something open, a pool of still water in her spirit. You carry us now, she said, and when the time is right, you will open the waterfall for others. On her final day, all the water beings gathered. They brought gifts, a strand of moonlight woven into her hair, a bracelet made of humming stones, and a shell that could sing her home if she ever felt lost. The silver-skinned woman kissed her forehead and whispered, "You are no longer just a girl. You are a bridge." Then the water parted, and Amara walked back, not because she wanted to, but because she was ready. The waterfall greeted her with mist and sunlight, but everything was different. When Amara returned from the waterfall, the world had not changed, but she had. She looked the same. Her hair was still coiled in black, her eyes still deep and quiet. But the villagers knew. Something in her presence stirred the wind. Children who once teased her now followed her barefoot through the paths, asking questions she couldn't yet answer. Dogs stopped barking when she walked past, flowers bloomed before the season arrived, and the elders began to speak her name, not with pity, but with reverence. She had come back a bridge between worlds. The first sign of her gift came on a dry afternoon. The sun had burned the crops for weeks. Dust clung to the air like smoke. Old women prayed. Men looked to the sky and saw nothing but heat. The river that once sang beside the village now mumbled in broken streams. Amara walked to the edge of the riverbank. She knelt and whispered to the water, "I'm sorry we forgot you." She took the shell gifted to her in the water world and placed it gently in the riverbed. She closed her eyes and sang. Not loudly, not in any language the villagers knew. It was a song that came from within her, a song she had heard sung by waves, by dolphins, by stars that swam beneath the water's surface in that other realm. And as she sang, clouds gathered, slowly, shyly. The sky turned dark. The first drop fell like a kiss, then another. Then the skies opened, and the rain danced. Not a storm, not a flood, but a beautiful, steady, cleansing rain. The people stared at Amara in silence, soaked and barefoot in the mud, tears mingling with the rain on their cheeks. From that day forward, they called her Amara, the rain bringer. But her powers were not only for water. A young boy, silent since birth, followed her everywhere. One day, Amara gave him a stone from her pouch, smooth and blue. She placed it in his hand and whispered, "Listen to the stone." That night, the boy spoke his first word. A woman who had been weeping every day since her husband died. Amara walked beside her without saying a thing. The next morning, the woman woke up and smiled, just smiled. No one knew what Amara had done. She never explained. She only said, "Water flows where it's needed. I just follow it." Soon, travelers from faraway lands came to see her. A girl whose shadow would not leave her. A man who had not dreamed in 20 years. An old chief whose voice had turned to whispers. Amara welcomed them all, but she never took gold, never accepted praise. All she ever asked in return was this: when the rain comes to you, do not forget to thank the river. Yet, even with her powers, Amara remained humble. She lived in a small hut with no walls, just a reed mat and a roof of palm leaves. Her days were quiet, filled with listening to the wind, tracing clouds, and sometimes standing silently beside the waterfall, waiting for something only she could hear. One night, the silver-skinned woman appeared to her again, not in a dream, but in the reflection of her water bowl. "You are becoming," she said. Amara asked, "Becoming what?" But the woman only smiled. Even rivers do not know where they end. And so the tale of Amara continues, in whispers, in wind, in every quiet rainfall that arrives just in time. They say she walked upon rivers of glass that showed her reflections of who she could become. A healer, a queen, a wanderer. She learned that water could take form, not just as oceans and tears, but as mirrors, as memory, even as time. She became a keeper of sacred waters, a healer of broken spirits, a girl who once walked through a waterfall and returned with the soul of a river. She walks still, between worlds, between drops of water. And that, my friends, is how Amara became more than a dreamer. But this story isn't over, because some say Amara still walks among us. And sometimes, when a child dreams too deeply, or when a tear touches the earth just right, they too are called to the place beyond the water, where the sky holds no clouds, and the water lives forever. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this tale, remember to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next journey into our African stories. Until then, stay curious, stay kind.